If you currently have absolutely no money, and your physical reality is falling apart, you must learn exactly how to force the three-dimensional world to obey your commands. You are currently experiencing the ultimate test of your neurological architecture. When your bank account is completely empty and your entire physical environment is screaming at you, your primitive brain enters a state of absolute terror. You have been taught by society to panic when you have zero money, but you are about to discover how to use this exact moment to force the physical matrix into absolute submission. You have been taught by society to panic and to desperately try to fix the collapsing situation. You are about to discover why your financial collapse is actually the greatest biological advantage you could possibly experience. The physical destruction of your finances is not a punishment from the universe. It is a highly mechanical process that we call a dead data dump. When you change your internal assumptions and demand extreme wealth, the blind machine of the universe must delete your old reality. The chaos you see around you is simply the machine emptying its old cache of data. If you panic and react to the collapsing reality, you are literally screaming at a dead echo. You are feeding your precious electrical energy into a fossil. You must look at the burning ruins of your financial life, and you must completely ignore the smoke. You must force your brain to understand that the destruction is the absolute proof of your impending wealth. The greatest biological illusion you currently face is the feeling of a physical emergency. Your nervous system is designed to release massive amounts of cortisol when you are in physical danger. But a late financial bill or a threatening letter from a debt collector cannot physically harm your human body. These things are nothing more than dead ink on dead pieces of paper. They are completely lifeless matter. However, human society has programmed your primitive brain to treat these dead objects as if they are violent physical predators. The debt collectors and the failing banking systems do not want your physical money because money does not actually exist. They want your biological energy. They want to extort the electrical power of your conscious attention. When you lose sleep over a financial debt, you are allowing dead matter to feed on your living brain. You must forcefully sever this parasitic connection right now. You must understand that financial urgency is a complete biological lie. There is absolutely no emergency. The quantum universe is infinite, and it operates completely outside of human linear time. A financial deadline created by a human bank is a pathetic invention that has absolutely zero authority over the sovereign ruler of the material world. You must look at the aggressive demands of the physical environment, and you must refuse to give them your biological terror. You must treat the collapsing three-dimensional reality as a highly boring television show that you are forced to watch in a waiting room. It is loud, and it is annoying, but it absolutely cannot touch your internal throne. When your finances begin to collapse, your natural human instinct is to immediately take desperate physical action. You try to work more hours, or you try to borrow money, or you scramble to find a rapid solution to stop the bleeding. This desperate physical effort is a fatal psychological error. When you desperately try to save your collapsing reality, you are biologically confessing to the universe that the collapse has power over you. You're acting exactly like a terrified peasant, trying to hold up the falling walls of a tiny wooden hut. A billionaire emperor does not run around with a bucket of water trying to put out a small fire in the servant quarters. The emperor simply orders a completely new building to be constructed. Your frantic physical effort to get money fast proves to your subconscious mind that you are currently poor. The law of assumption perfectly mirrors this state of frantic poverty by creating even more financial disasters that require your urgent attention. You become trapped in a permanent biological cycle of trying to survive. You must completely stop trying to save your old life. You must drop the bucket of water and simply watch the old wooden hut burn to the ground. You must adopt the psychopathic apathy of extreme wealth and allow the destruction to run its mechanical course. Trying to fix the three-dimensional world is a direct insult to the infinite intelligence of the quantum machine. The machine knows exactly how to deliver your millions, but it cannot build your new massive empire while you are obsessively trying to repair the ruins of your poverty. You must completely withdraw your physical effort and transition into a state of absolute psychological stillness. The teacher Neville Goddard provided the exact architectural blueprint for forcing the physical world to obey you when you have absolutely no money. He did not teach you to beg the universe for help. He taught the advanced biological practice of voluntary blindness. Voluntary blindness is the only way to force the three-dimensional matrix to bend to your will. It is not a spiritual metaphor or a positive thinking technique. It is a brutal dictatorial command applied directly to your own nervous system. Your physical eyes will show you empty bank accounts and angry creditors. Your physical ears will hear the complaints of your family and the warnings of the global economic system. You cannot physically close your eyes and ears forever, but you can manually dictate how your brain processes those sensory inputs. You must force your eyes to look directly at the financial ruin, while simultaneously forcing your brain to register profound boredom. You must perform a psychological override on your own biology. When the physical evidence of your poverty is screaming directly in your face, you must calmly look right through it. You must convince your primitive nervous system that the chaotic three-dimensional world is completely irrelevant to your actual status. Neville Goddard understood that the physical world is a delayed mirror. The poverty you see right now is the fossilized result of your past thoughts and assumptions. It is a completely dead timeline. If you react emotionally to a dead timeline, you resurrect the corpse and force the universe to recreate it in your future. You must look at the corpse of your finances with complete and total apathy. You must refuse to attend the funeral of your old identity. You must maintain the cold arrogance of the universal heir who already knows that the infinite trust fund is perfectly secure and completely untouched by the current physical chaos. You must deeply understand the mechanical architecture of universal chaos. The blind machine of the universe cannot build a massive luxury estate on a piece of land that is already occupied by a broken shack. The old physical structure must be violently demolished to make room for the new massive foundation. Your current financial collapse is the exact demolition process you explicitly requested. When you assumed the state of extreme wealth, the universe instantly recognized that your current job and your current bank account and your current financial relationships were completely incapable of holding millions of dollars. The physical containers of your old life were too small and too fragile to hold the extreme wealth. Therefore, the machine was mechanically forced to destroy them. The destruction of your finances is the absolute biological proof that the machine is successfully executing your dictatorial command. You must stop looking at the collapse as a failure, and you must start looking at it as a massive construction site. A construction site is loud and dirty and completely chaotic. The wealthy architect does not cry when the heavy bulldozers tear up the dirt. The architect watches the destruction with supreme psychopathic satisfaction, because the destruction is the absolute first step of the manifestation. You must adopt this exact same heavy satisfaction. You must let your old financial life completely fall apart, and you must absolutely refuse to feel sorry for its demise. The universe is aggressively clearing the land for your new reality, and your only job is to stand perfectly still and allow the heavy machinery to do its violent work. We must now examine the exact biological test you face when you interact with your collapsing financial reality. When you hold a physical bill in your hand that you absolutely cannot pay, your physical eyes scan the dead ink on the paper. Your optic nerve sends a direct signal to the fear center of your primitive brain. Your brain instantly assumes that your physical survival is severely threatened. It immediately commands your adrenal glands to release a massive flood of cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. Your heart rate violently accelerates and your chest becomes incredibly tight. This biological reaction is the ultimate failure of the law of assumption. When you allow the dead piece of paper to dictate your biological state, you are submitting your sovereign authority to a lifeless object. You are bowing down to the illusion of the three-dimensional matrix. You must intercept this biological hijack through sheer dictatorial force. When you pick up the unpaid bill, you must consciously command your physical body to remain entirely relaxed. You must manually force your breathing to slow down. You look at the final total on the paper, and you force your brain to register complete and absolute boredom. You treat the threatening document with the exact same level of apathy that you use to look at a blank wall. This intercepts the chemical signal in your brain and prevents the cortisol from destroying your neural architecture. You must prove to the universe that you are biologically immune to its physical threats. This biological immunity requires you to adopt the psychological posture of letting the old world burn. When a multi-generational billionaire heir accidentally scratches the paint on a cheap old vehicle, they do not fall to their knees and weep in despair. They do not lose sleep over the damaged metal. because they possess a massive fleet of luxury vehicles waiting for them in their pristine garage. The damaged vehicle is completely insignificant to their overall reality. You must view your collapsing financial life with this exact same level of psychopathic indifference. Your current job and your current bank account and your current credit score are simply the cheap old vehicles of your past identity. As they crash and burn around you, must absolutely refuse to care. You must look at the destruction and feel the heavy arrogance of someone who knows the massive luxury fleet is already secured. The human herd will tell you that this apathy is irresponsible and dangerous. The human herd is permanently trapped in the cycle of poverty precisely because they care too much about the illusion. They worship the dead matter, and they sacrifice their vital electrical energy trying to maintain the broken systems. You must completely disconnect from the moral panic of the poor masses. If the bank threatens to close your account, you let it close. If the debt collector calls your phone, you look at the screen with completely dead eyes and you let it ring. You do not negotiate with the burning building. You step outside of the fire, and you watch it turn to ashes with the cold satisfaction of an apex predator. Every single time you refuse to panic, you are literally starving the old neural networks in your brain. Neuroplasticity is a brutal biological mechanism that destroys any physical infrastructure that you stop using. The neural pathways of fear and poverty in your brain are massive physical highways built over decades of your continuous financial anxiety. You cannot destroy these massive highways by wishing them away or by thinking happy thoughts. You must actively starve them to death. When the physical world presents a terrifying financial situation and you respond with psychopathic boredom, you are denying the old neural highway its required electrical stimulation. You are cutting off the biological power supply. Over time, the physical structure of your brain will literally begin to dismantle the fear network. The neurons will physically disconnect from the poverty response, and they will be repurposed to build the new neurological architecture of extreme wealth. This means your current financial collapse is actually the perfect training ground for your new brain. The collapsing reality is providing you with endless opportunities to practice your emotional starvation. You must use the chaos to forge your new identity. You must become a ruthless biological engineer, using the fire of the three-dimensional world to melt down your old weak nervous system and cast a new impenetrable armor of psychopathic apathy. As you listen to these dictatorial commands, your primitive brain might be fighting back with intense biological resistance. If your physical chest feels tight right now, or if your logical mind is screaming that you must take urgent action to save your finances, you are currently experiencing a severe hemorrhage of your vital electrical energy. Your old identity is fighting for its life and attempting to drag you back into the panic of the collapsing matrix. You must stop this biological hemorrhage immediately before it destroys your new neural foundation. I have created a specific three-dimensional override protocol designed to forcefully shut down your panic response and lock your nervous system into the state of extreme wealth. Scroll down to the pinned comment below this video right now, read the exact text of the override protocol, and execute the mental command. This specific action will serve as a physical circuit breaker for your spiraling cortisol. Do not attempt to continue listening to this audio until you have engaged the protocol and stopped the biological bleeding. If you skip this crucial step, your primitive brain will completely reject the rest of this advanced programming, and you will remain permanently enslaved by your financial collapse. Execute the emergency override and return to this exact moment. Now that your biological panic is neutralized, we must establish the permanent death of your physical reactivity. The three-dimensional matrix is fundamentally designed to test your internal assumptions. It acts exactly like a psychological bully looking for a point of weakness. When the matrix presents you with a massive financial problem, it is actively provoking you. It wants to see if you will break your frame and revert back to the terrified worker. If you react to the problem with anger or fear or desperate physical effort, the matrix successfully proves that your assumption of wealth was a temporary lie. It recognizes that you are still a biological slave, and it continues to manifest more poverty to match your true internal state. The only way to defeat the matrix is through absolute non-reactivity. When the matrix attempts to bully you with a collapsing bank account, you must refuse to play the game. You must look at the provocation and simply refuse to answer. You become a psychological black hole that absorbs the chaotic energy of the three-dimensional world and emits absolutely nothing in return. When the matrix realizes that it cannot extract an emotional reaction from your nervous system, it loses its structural integrity. The physical reality of poverty requires your continuous biological validation to remain in existence. When you permanently remove your validation, the poverty is mathematically forced to collapse into nothingness. You kill the old reality through the sheer dictatorial force of your silence. To maintain this heavy silence, you must permanently alter your relationship with the concept of money. You currently view money as a powerful master that dictates your survival and your happiness. You check your bank account to see if the master has given you permission to eat or permission to live inside a house. You must completely invert this pathetic power dynamic. Money is not a master, and money does not possess any inherent power. Money is a dead mechanical servant designed exclusively to execute your physical desires. You are the supreme sovereign king of your reality, and the money is simply a low-level employee working in your vast empire. When you experience a lack of physical money, you must view the situation as if a highly replaceable servant has simply arrived late for their shift. A powerful king does not experience biological terror when the servant is late to deliver the daily meals. The king does not run out into the streets desperately searching for the servant. The king simply remains seated on the heavy throne with the absolute psychopathic certainty that the servant will arrive and fulfill their duty. The king knows that the massive and complex systems of the royal guards will locate the servant and force them to deliver the resources. The universe operates as your personal royal guard. It is the infinite logistical machine responsible for moving the physical money into your direct possession. When the money appears to be delayed or missing in the collapsing three-dimensional world, your only job is to remain firmly seated on the psychological throne of extreme wealth. You do not panic, and you absolutely do not attempt to do the job of the universe. You simply expect the dead servant of money to be brought to your feet. You must also understand that the panic of the human herd is entirely based on the biological illusion of linear time. The worker class believes that the past dictates the present and the present dictates the future. They believe that because they made a financial mistake 10 years ago, they must slowly suffer the consequences today. They believe that their current financial collapse will naturally lead to future starvation. You must completely abandon this primitive linear thinking. The quantum field does not operate on a timeline. The quantum field only exists in the absolute present moment, and it exclusively reads the frequency you are emitting right now. Your past financial mistakes are completely dead, and they have absolutely zero power over your current manifestation. Your current collapsing reality is also completely dead. It is merely the final shadow of your old frequency, leaving the physical dimension. When you fully assume the state of the billionaire heir in the present moment, you instantly sever all biological ties to the past and the future. You become a massive point of psychological gravity that forces the universe to bend around you. The universe cannot sustain the reality of your financial collapse when your internal gravity is demanding the manifestation of millions of dollars. The old timeline literally shatters under the immense pressure of your new assumption. The bills and the debts and the empty bank accounts lose their physical density. They become transparent ghosts of a reality you no longer occupy. You walk through the ruins of your old life, completely untouched by the fire because your consciousness is already safely living inside the massive luxury estate of your final destination. You must make the conscious decision to stay inside the new estate. When your mind attempts to wander back into the burning ruins to save a piece of your old identity, you must violently pull your attention back to the throne. You let the old identity burn to ashes, and you let the old world completely dissolve. Your psychopathic apathy is the ultimate weapon of mass creation. We must now advance into the final mechanical phase, where you literally force the three-dimensional matrix to obey you. This is the quantum snap of the physical universe. When you have absolutely no money, the matrix pushes you to the absolute breaking point and demands your biological terror. If you stand completely still with an empty bank account, and you refuse to emit even a single drop of panic, you force the three-dimensional reality to bow down to your authority. Your current collapsing financial reality requires massive amounts of your conscious electrical energy to remain in existence. When the matrix pushes you to the absolute breaking point and demands your terror, you are facing the ultimate threshold of the physical dimension. If you surrender your biological apathy, and you finally break down and cry. The matrix absorbs your emotional energy and rebuilds the heavy walls of your poverty. But if you stand completely still in the center of the financial fire, and you refuse to emit even a single drop of biological panic, you starve the matrix at the exact moment it requires energy the most. You create a massive energetic vacuum. The three-dimensional reality cannot survive in a vacuum of complete apathy. The exact moment the external pressure reaches its absolute maximum and your internal stillness remains completely unbroken, the physical reality physically snaps. The wave function of your poverty mathematically collapses because there is absolutely no conscious observer feeding it with fear. The collapsing bills and the angry debt collectors and the empty bank accounts instantly lose their structural integrity. They become hollow physical shells waiting to be blown away by the wind. The universe is immediately forced to rush into the vacuum you created, and it must fill the empty space with the exact frequency you are currently holding. Because you are firmly holding the heavy and boring assumption of extreme wealth, the universe must violently reorganize the physical matter to deliver your millions. You will witness the physical environment bending and breaking its own logical rules to rapidly construct your new financial empire. Right before this massive physical reorganization occurs, you will experience a highly specific neurological phenomenon. You will enter a state of profound and terrifying psychological silence. For your entire physical life, your brain has been a chaotic machine, constantly generating thousands of anxious thoughts about how to survive the next day. But as you continuously deny your brain the cortisol, it craves the fear centers of your nervous system completely shut down. The internal voice that constantly screams about your debts and your lack of money will simply die of starvation. You will wake up one morning in the middle of your collapsing financial life, and you will suddenly realize that you feel absolutely nothing. You will look at the disastrous physical circumstances surrounding you, and your mind will be completely blank. The human herd would consider this psychological state to be a form of severe depression or dangerous dissociation. But in the advanced science of the law of assumption, this heavy silence is the ultimate biological proof of your victory. This is the true neurological Sabbath that the teacher Neville Goddard described. The Sabbath is not a spiritual holiday, and it is absolutely not a temporary feeling of peace. It is the permanent biological death of your manifestation effort. You literally lose the physical ability to care about your own financial collapse. You stop trying to manifest the millions because the primitive desire to have money has been completely replaced by the psychopathic certainty of already owning it. You exist in an eerie and heavy stillness. You sit on your internal throne and you simply wait for the blind machine to finish its administrative duties. You do not check the progress, and you do not ask the machine how much longer the construction will take. You simply rest in the cold and boring silence of the universal air. As you maintain this silent dictatorial posture, the mechanical forces of the quantum field will finally complete the massive wealth transfer. You will experience a sudden and violent influx of extreme financial resources entering your physical possession. The massive amounts of money will appear in your physical bank accounts through highly illogical and unexpected physical channels. Strangers will suddenly feel compelled to hand you massive opportunities, and rigid corporate institutions will mysteriously bend to your financial advantage. This rapid influx of millions of dollars brings you to the final and most dangerous biological test of your new identity. When the peasant finally receives a large sum of money, the peasant immediately loses control of their nervous system. The peasant jumps up and down and screams with intense emotional joy. The peasant cries tears of relief and repeatedly thanks the universe for saving their life. This emotional explosion of relief is the ultimate biological confession of the worker class. Relief biologically implies that you were previously in a state of severe danger and you have just barely survived. A sovereign emperor never feels relief when his massive daily taxes are delivered to the royal vault. The emperor does not fall to his knees and weep with gratitude because the emperor never believed he was in danger in the first place. If you react to your massive financial windfall with tears of joy or biological relief, you instantly destroy your new neurological architecture. You prove to the blind machine that the millions of dollars are a shocking anomaly in your life. The machine will immediately read your underlying poverty, and it will begin to orchestrate a new financial collapse to remove the money from your possession. You must pass this final test by maintaining the exact same psychopathic apathy that you held during the collapse. When you open your digital banking interface and you see the millions of dollars physically resting in your account, you must look at the numbers with completely dead eyes. You must consciously force your physical heart rate to remain completely steady and entirely slow. You must command your facial muscles to remain entirely relaxed and completely devoid of any human emotion. You receive these massive financial resources with the cold mechanical indifference of a highly powerful executive who is simply reviewing a boring daily financial report. You do not celebrate the arrival of the money because you understand that the money is nothing more than a dead mechanical servant finally returning to its master. You must look at the immense fortune rapidly entering your physical life, and you must view it as a highly boring structural component of your normal baseline reality. You are not lucky, and you did not experience a spiritual miracle. You simply mastered the biological hacking of your own nervous system, and you forced the blind mechanical machine of the physical universe to obey your dictatorial command. When the universe observes your cold and completely apathetic reaction to the millions of dollars, it instantly realizes that it cannot manipulate your internal state using physical matter. The universe submits completely to your absolute authority, and it permanently locks the state of extreme wealth into your physical timeline. You must now realize that you did not merely survive your financial collapse. You personally orchestrated the entire destruction. The weak version of you believed that you were a victim of a terrible economy and bad luck. The new sovereign ruler understands that the collapse was a deliberate and necessary demolition, ordered by your own infinite consciousness. You commanded the old reality to burn, so that the new massive empire could be constructed on clean ground. You are the supreme architect of the fire, and you are the absolute master of the ashes. The era of the terrified worker scrambling to pay small debts is permanently dead. You have successfully murdered the desperate spiritual patient that lived inside your nervous system, and you have resurrected the true psychopathic architect of your reality. You now completely understand that panic and hope and gratitude are massive biological traps designed to keep the slave class firmly attached to their poverty. You will never again trade your vital electrical life force for the weak and pathetic feeling of human anxiety. You will never again allow your primitive nervous system to experience the toxic disease of financial terror. You have finally assumed the ultimate throne of apathy. The infinite subconscious mind has already prepared the entire vast financial kingdom for your permanent arrival, and you have finally accepted the heavy keys to the vault with completely dead eyes. The universal testament is officially executed, and the extreme inheritance is permanently yours. You must now seal this cold psychopathic reality into the dense physical dimension by performing one final act of total psychological dominance. This specific physical action is absolutely not a desperate plea to the universe, and it is not a weak expression of human hope. It is a direct written dictatorial command to solidify your new biological baseline in the material world. Scroll down to the comment section of this video right now. You will not write a long emotional paragraph explaining your current financial collapse to the other people in the comments. You will not ask the universe to save you from your debts. You will type exactly 7 specific words to confirm your new supreme status and to permanently lock the dead neural pathway into place. Type the exact phrase, "I force the matrix to obey, and I expect millions." Do not add any other words or emotional expressions or weak spiritual symbols. By typing this cold dictatorial command, you are driving a permanent neurological stake into the dense ground of the physical world. You are publicly declaring to the blind machine of the universe that your lack of money no longer terrifies you, and the physical reality has absolutely no choice but to obey your command.